Okay, thank you, Megan. Thank you for joining us today. I start with a little bit about who I am. I am a lab info system consultant. I've been doing ELN consulting for over 10 years in the biopharmaceutical industry. My experience as a research scientist in biology in the past 20 years helped me to develop a pretty good knowledge of laboratory workflow processes with a good understanding of scientist requirements. I worked as a BA in multiple ELN projects to help clients selecting and then implementing the system. I've also an extensive experience in developing different types of automated assays, such as in vitro high throughput screenings and cell-based assay. Looking at today's agenda, we're going to cover the following items. First, you've selected your ELN. Now what? We'll highlight major key implementation considerations, such as the stakeholders, the governance, and the involvement of end users. For strategic implementation approach, we will discuss different ELN implementations approach based on the type of business you're running. The next item is the establishment of processes when implementing your ELN. We will also go through the key factors for success. After summarizing this presentation, we'll have the opportunity to take your questions. Now you have selected your ELN, you should think about the major considerations that need to be discussed prior to start the ELN implementations. So what are these considerations? First, project charter approval. Make sure your project charter is valid and approved and communicated properly to the stakeholders. For the project team structure, try to have the team members fully informed and engaged. There is also configuration and system integration. That's about usually what type of configuration is suitable for your organization. That could be basic versus advanced ELN functionalities, could be paper under glass, or it could be ELN within an organization that has multidisciplinary groups that are intended to use the ELN. You have at the end the workflow mapping and the templating, which is one of the major considerations when implementing ELN, to find out if there is a need, to find out if there is a need of developing automated workflow to be used as a template or not. So there is the rollout good practices and SOPs too, which is a good point to take in consideration. We suggest that as you keep the momentum going, ELN best practices is one of the implementation chapters you might need to discuss before and during the rollout process. Also, you need to think about creating supporting SOPs for operation, controls, and administration of the system. You have also the regulatory and compliance point. Whether or not you're working in a regulated environment, it's always good to plan for quality assurance of the data you are generating and make sure that these data are in compliance with the required policies and rules. Finally, and which is extremely important too, is training and user adoption. I would say, it's always good, avoiding to give access to the users before they can get an official training, for instance, and make sure to focus on true adoption to fully retire the legacy system and to move forward with the new system. Now let's talk about the team. So, I mean, we can say all parties can have their project manager, project leader, and their business analyst. The team is usually comprised of the client, the vendor, and the third-party team members with different roles and responsibilities. For the client, the focus is on the logistic infrastructure, and the budget might use in either their personal staff or maybe they can hire a third-party consultant. For the vendor, the focus is on the management of the system, especially for ELN. Most of the ELN implementation I've seen so far, I would say like 95% of these implementation are done by the vendor. So they're responsible for, as I mentioned, installation, configuration, validation, and training. The validation part could also be handled by the client with or without a third-party involvement. For the third-party consultant, so these are usually hired by the clients that don't have much experience with the ELNs to help them implementing and rolling out the system properly and maybe thinking for, the future because ELN is a growing system. Consultant can also make recommendations for the future steps, as I just mentioned, in terms of maybe integrating other systems or thinking about if there are instruments or equipment you might maybe interface to your ELN. Most of these roles are filled in general by ELN project managers and business analysts. Involvement of end users is the cornerstone, which means, at least to me, which means, you need to include end users at all levels of the design phase while explaining the value of making the move from paper to ELN by, these are some examples, by reducing dependence on a paper and a paper notebook, by providing more tools for processing and sharing data, decreasing the time to search, collate, and analyze data sets. Also get end users and subject matter experts fully committed by explaining how they can benefit from the new system by just giving them some flavor of how the system can help them to get more data consistency and accuracy with a better information flow, standardization, and maybe another example you might give to them and to explain to them about the automatic integration of lab system and instruments. And you can maybe give precise examples if you tell them if you are doing biological assays, for instance, you can get your raw data straight from the instrument, pushed to ELN, and all the rest of calculations and processing is done by the system. When implementing your ELN, you also need to know if the structure of your organization has the necessary tools to support the implementation by ensuring, for instance, day-to-day management of business operations, risk management, and the escalation processes. The IT and the business strategy alignment is also of a big interest for a workflow prioritization to help the business to make the right decisions by make just priorities between intra and intergroup workflows prioritization. And I can just give an example. So you might have maybe just one group, which is maybe easier if it's just one group. Maybe they need just one workflow to develop or a couple of them. But if you have many groups working on the same projects, so then from IT and the business, so you need to make, your priorities and to write down on the list who's going to go the first, the second, and the last one. So that's why you need a good identification of business workflow and make the good decisions too. Also, make sure that you have the necessary resources in place to meet your objectives, to get these workflows well captured, well defined, well designed, and well delivered. In conclusion, you need to have an organization structure that can provide a good project oversight, good project control, and an effective and timely project decision making. For communication and tracking, you need to be aware of that because you are implementing an ELN system and many changes can happen during this implementation. So at least you need to put in front, to have a valid communication and tracking system plan in place that is shared and communicated to all stakeholders. These are usually, as I mentioned just before, the client, the vendor, and the third party. Here are some of useful tools such as Jira or Smartsheets that can help to trace between requirements, test cases, track the coverage of your testing, of your tests using comprehensive reports that are understandable by all stakeholders, tracking of tasks, issues, and the right time to make decisions,